my friend Joanna, who was another speaker with the TEDx Cherry Creek Women event that I was a part of. And her talk is centered around the three pillars of overcoming trauma. And I am really excited to dive into this conversation, especially because, let's be honest, 2020 has been a rough year for so many of us. And, I don't know where you are in your life or how this year has treated you, but if it's been hard and it's been challenging, trust that you are not alone in that. And you may have experienced some traumatic events. You might just be feeling some emotions about this year and about, let's be honest, the fact that we are sort of distanced from one another and don't have access to the communities that we are connected with in the ways that we were before. And there's a way where that can create a lot of unsettlement and a lot of discomfort. And there's trauma that we can face during the changes and challenges in our lives. And so I think this is a great time to dive into a topic like this and really talk about how we process trauma, how we come to the other side of that, and really how we can discover wholeness for ourselves coming through trauma as we deal and process through things. And so I'm really excited to talk about that tonight with my friend Joanna. So I'm going to bring her on with us. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We are moving into a new year. And question, did you have a TEDx talk on your list of things to accomplish in 2020? Or was that, how are you feeling about this experience? What was that like for you?
I had it on my bucket list, but not for 2020. And it's kind of crazy because I'm sure a lot of people have been experiencing this kind of 2020 bucket list type of attitude. Maybe I don't feel like I'm the only one, but it was just, I had so much more time to dedicate to projects like that on my list. So 2020 happened to be the year where I just said, why not? and it ended up working out, and it was one of the best things that I could have done this year, honestly. So I'm definitely thankful for that fact, and also the fact that I was able to connect with great women such as yourself and our other presenters that were with us through that experience, because it was very different, in lieu of COVID as well. But here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. We had a great group of women. Every topic was really powerful. And I'm just really looking forward to getting to know each and one of you more. And hopefully when this is, when we're able to gather together in person, we can break bread and, share drink and really get to know one another. I can't wait for that time. But in the meantime, I'm so glad that we can interact here and get to know you some more and to dive into this incredible talk that you did and vulnerable talk that you did about trauma and the experience that you had and what you went through. So let's start off there. So I don't know if you have had a chance, everyone, to take a look at Joanna's TED Talk. The link is in the description section of our talk this evening. So definitely when we're done here tonight, go ahead and click on that link and watch her video. But for those of you who were not able to watch Joanna's talk, Joanna had survived a incredibly difficult, challenging situation that, we hope nobody has to go through something like this, but it's something that's happening more and more in today's world. So Joanna, I'm going to turn it over to you and go ahead and share with us the experience that was a culmination of this talk that you presented for our event.
Well, thank you so much for having us on your platform and sharing your platform with us, first of all. But
Yeah.
yes, the Aurora Theater shootings happened in 2012, and my TED Talk talks about how I repressed having to deal with that trauma for a very long time, and how I struggled through other means of dealing with it. And it was something where I knew that I wanted to share eventually. And when this TED Talk experience became a reality, it's something that emerged as something that I needed to share with whoever would want to watch the talk, because a mass shooting is definitely a traumatic thing, and you're exactly right about that, Sarah. It's happening a lot more in our society, and so more people are having to deal with a trauma like that. However, the intention of my TED Talk was to talk about how we all have experienced trauma in some capacity. That just happened to be mine that I struggled with, and then eventually was able to figure out how to live through it, how to live with that have happened in my past, because it doesn't ever go away, and we just learn how to live through it. And but it's something that we all can have in common and come together to help each other through. So so that was really just the focus of my talk. Obviously, well, because you've seen it, Sarah, but for those that haven't, I also make sure to mention like some key people in my life that I've been lucky enough to have that really embody these pillars that I talk about, these 3 pillars that help me even today, in all aspects of life, to live through trauma and help others also figure out how to find their way through it. So I talk about my 3 pillars, which are to be consistent and reliable. And this means for your support system and for yourself to listen without judgment. And then also to take your trauma seriously, because those 3 things in my journey really helped me. And I gave some examples of 3 people in my life that really embodied those pillars for me. But in all actuality, we also have to take responsibility of our healing process as well and embody those pillars, whether it's my 3 or 3 that you find for yourself.
That's great. Yeah. I would definitely want to jump into those or dive into those 3 pillars. But before we get there, so your talk really opens pretty powerfully as you're setting the scene of going to the movie theater for this movie premiere that's highly anticipated. I mean, it was was one of those movies that was like so highly anticipated. And it's, you never think that what happened is something that would happen at a movie theater while you're spending time with, your friends, your family, just going to the theater. And so, when you opened up your talk, you talked about how before this incident happened, you were dealing with coming out of, a DUI and, moving through understanding that there was maybe some issues with substance abuse and, coming through that. And whenever, for me, I'm, you are 100% correct in that what we all share commonly is trauma. Every single person walking this earth has gone through some form of trauma. And that is definitely a connective experience that we can have that leads us to greater empathy for ourselves and for one another. But when you're dealing with, coming through an incident like that, DUI, that's maybe opening your eyes to like some other situations. Am I right in saying that there's probably some past trauma there before that you were coming through? And then you come up to this incident that has just really, like Pandora's box, just taken the lid off of a lot of things.
Yes, definitely. There were some other really traumatic things that happened prior to 2012 with the Aurora Theater shootings, and I hadn't dealt with any of it, honestly. So exactly what you're saying is hitting the nail right on the head. And that theater shootings really was a culmination of everything together that kind of pushed me over an edge, because, as I end up mentioning during the TED Talk, my substance abuse issue with alcohol in particular didn't go away after I had finished my DUI requirement. It seemed like it got worse. And it wasn't until I actually started working in the mental health field that I actually figured out, through helping others, that I needed to kind of figure my own self out. and started to peel back the layers, and actually realized that the issues that I was having with substance abuse and things like that were because I was suppressing these traumas instead of dealing with them. Because it was easier. It was easier to bury myself in school. It was easier to bury myself in my 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
But I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was taking care of everyone else. And so it was something that, I mentioned a time when I woke up in detox and I had to call my mom, and I was so embarrassed about it. That was one of the times that I really had to have that conversation with myself once I was sober and look myself in the mirror and say, Joanna, you have to do these things that you're wanting your support system to do for yourself as well. And if you're feeling like something's missing in your life, whether it be that reliable and consistent piece, or the non-judgmental listening, or the taking your trauma seriously, I needed that for my support system, but I also had to learn how to do those things for myself as well. So I would say when I was at the lowest point, like when the theater shooting happened, is when I actually just pushed it all off. I think Carlos and I were being offered, to do a story on the news, or, gosh, can we interview you for a special on the theater shootings that we're doing, an article that we're doing. And we were constantly like, no, we'll give our statement to the courts, but we don't want to relive this over and over and over again. So in essence, I just kept pushing it off, and kind of trying to live my life as if it didn't happen. And that's why I feel like it was this cycle that I couldn't get out of for a while.
The repression of
destructive, yeah.
Right, and repressing those things down. And I can definitely relate to that experience personally, and the effects that happen when you're repressing, trauma, and what it's like, what is that moment of awareness that comes? Because for every person, that moment of awareness is different. But would you say that the moment of awareness was in your work with other people, like when you were specifically around that? And I find that so interesting, because would you say, or would you agree that oftentimes when we are looking for our purpose, or we're looking for, how we can have greater meaning in our lives, we often go down this path towards our pain, and it's a way of engaging with our pain without actually having to take ownership of it in a way. But in doing that, it's like it puts you in direct connection with the thing in your own work that you need to do. Would you say that that's what you experienced?
Yes. Definitely. I subconsciously, I felt like, that I talk about survivor's guilt. I didn't say it actually verbatim during my talk, but I said that I had this guilt for surviving. And in psychology, survivor's guilt is a real thing. And I think a part of me having that guilt subconsciously put me in the mental health field. And I guess there's a saying that people say regularly, which is, if you can't do, you teach.
Oh, yeah.
Having a struggle, I had a struggle with my own traumas and I kept suppressing them, but I still wanted to help people that were maybe going through trauma in some capacity. And so ended up in that mental health field with children and adolescents. And that was the pinnacle moment for me, Sarah, was when I mentioned I was leading a therapy group where we were actually, I had developed a few different therapy groups. Actually, this one in particular that I was talking about during my TED Talk was a music interpretation group where I would play different genre of music and have the, the clients that we were helping write down how it makes them feel, or write down a memory of what that music kind of evokes inside of you.
Yeah.
And it was just something that welled up inside of me. And I had done the group many times before. So for some reason in that moment, though, when someone else was sharing, their thoughts and feelings about this certain genre of music, it really made me emotional. I mean, to the point to where I needed to take a moment, and take a breath, because it really triggered something in me where I was like, something is definitely still wrong. Like, you can't keep saying you're okay.
Right.
I mean, I'm okay because I'm going to work every day. I'm okay because I'm working 2 jobs. I'm okay because I'm still going to school and I'm doing well. I'm achieving things, but all the while I still have these underlying things that I haven't dealt with. And in essence, then, overindulged in things that were self-destructive because I was overworking myself and pushing myself. So,
yeah.